Hello and welcome to BusyWorksBeats.com. Today I'm going to show you how to make melodies right inside of FL Studio, and it's super simple. Let's hop straight into FL Studio. So firstly, we want to start with real instruments. Whenever you're stuck in FL, just try real instruments first and then use all the synth instruments. Let's right click here. Let's replace this with the Flex plugin. There's a couple pianos you got to download, so go to the Stores tab and download all the essential packs. So essential piano, essential strings, essential winds, essential guitars. Let's go to essential pianos here. Let's go to the Yamaha C7. And what we want to do here is turn off the effects most of the time. Okay, I'm not telling you guys what to do, but what I do is I turn off these power buttons so we have a clean tone. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is understand chords. I'm not going to go super deep with chords because I covered this in my music theory bundle at busyworksbeats.com. What we're going to do is right click, go to piano roll. And what we're going to do is create our chord. So I'll just show you guys chords. I'm not going to sit here and explain chord codes, but I teach much deeper than this. So here we have D, F, and A. So what we're going to do is not start here at the root note. What we're going to do is actually start at the middle note here, the third it's called. So let's go from the third to the fifth back to the tonic. Okay, so let's spread these notes out. So we're taking a chord and we're spreading the notes out. And then we could just repeat this. There's a rule of 3 with melody, so you can repeat in 3s. It helps the ear latch onto your melody. Okay, so now we're going to just change the chord type. So instead of playing D minor over and over and over, we're going to go down to a different chord. We could do the fifth of D, which is A. We can do, let's try F. Okay, so let's drop this chord down to F. All we have to do is hit shift down until we get to F. Now, again, there's a lot more I teach about music theory, but for now, I'm just going to show you guys. We're going to move this note so that it's up 1. So this is called a major chord. Okay, so this sounds too far away. So what we want to do is start moving notes around. This is called revoicing. Let's hit Control up to move these notes around. Now this sounds too pleasant to me, so let's try the note D instead. Now my ear wants to hear this. So in this case, we're using a regular minor chord here. And we're going to the fifth of D, which is A. Okay, and then we can repeat this, and I'll show you guys how to make it sound more full. Let's hit shift, pull this over. To make this sound more full, we're going to take the root note, which is D and A. Let's add it over here, 2 octaves below. And then when we switch over to A, let's add that. Hit shift, pull this note over. Let's see how low we can go with these notes. Let's highlight these. Let's hit Control down. Also notice how the notes overlap each other. Now to humanize this, to make it feel human, we're going to go to the tools here and go to humanize. You guys can mess with all these knobs here. Basically, you can mess with the start time offset. You can mess with the duration of the note. You can mess with the velocity of the note, which I recommend you guys try this. And then just hit accept. And now it will feel more human. There's another piano roll script. Again, I don't have time to explain everything about everything right now in this video. If you go to tools, look for the remove overlap script from the image line forums. You have to download that manually from the image line forums. So we're not done the melody. Okay, so you have your level 1 melody. Now what we're going to do is think of the melody in zones. So I call these the 4 components. You have the top line melody. This is usually your highest frequency of the song. You have your harmony section, which is your chords. This is the glue to the track. You have your contrast layer. This is your bass to the track, and you have rhythm, which is the perception of time. So let's see, what do we have in our composition so far? And also I'm going to highlight these and hit Control L so they don't overlap, and just fix that note length. Okay. So what we want to do here is see what we already have. We have the harmony section here because we played chords, and we have rhythm because we're playing them rhythmically. We're not playing them normal. And then we have a contrast layer down here. So we have 3 layers. We have the harmony section, the rhythm section, and the contrast section. So all we have left to add is a top line. And I think people confuse melodies. They think it's just one thing. Melodies can be 4 components combined. So if you want a rule of thumb, I like to see the highest note of my chord and go at least 1 octave higher. Not a hard rule, just a rule of thumb. So the top line is going to start above, from here to above. Okay, so again, we can copy the same formula, or we could do, this is where it gets a little advanced because we could play chords over top of a chord. Okay, so we could take this chord into a further, what's called chord extension. So we could play D, F, A, and then we could play A, C, E, which makes us a minor 9th chord. Now, another technique we can use is pivot around what's called the F and pull that up an octave. This creates a raised 3rd, and this creates what's called the 10th. So the 10th is very melodic, the same way the 3rd interval is melodic. Okay, so notice it creeps up and then it comes back down a half step. Dun, and my ear wants to hear dun, dun, dun. Okay, so again, I'm using my ear more than a technique here. Let's also keep our snap to grid on a half beat. And what we want to do here is understand what we're doing. So again, we have to think about the chord and the top line as one thing. Because we're basically playing an extension, we're just playing it in a different octave. So here we have D, F, and A, and then we have A, C, E, which makes this a 9th chord. And then we have the raised 3rd. So this is really one big chord just spread out over time. And what we're doing is, playing these notes in 3s, and then we're resolving that half step down a half step. And then we're going from the root note here back to the 5th, which is A, okay? Which is the chord change that we made. And there's so much to explain here, but I cover this in my music theory bundle at busyworksbeats.com. The reason E to A works is because you're basically resolving using a perfect 5th in that case. So that's why all this stuff makes sense. Let's repeat the same phrase. Now you can change up the notes, but we want to keep the same timing most of the time because that's what the ear gets used to, is the timing of the notes. So everything feels the same because all the velocities are the same. There's no time differences. Let's go back to the tools. Let's go to humanize. And you guys can try a bigger velocity offset. Let's pull this back down. Let's change the range for the velocity. And the duration, let's up the range here. And the start time, let's up that range. And then let's pull these. So offset apparently just changes the middle value. And then we can regenerate and then hit accept. Now again, what we need to do is make sure we remove overlaps in FL Studio. If you have overlapping notes, they won't trigger. They won't make a sound. So we're not done. So what we're going to do here is, from this point, I like changing the key to hear it in a different key. So we wrote in D minor. Now let's hit shift down, just 1. And now we have our melody in a whole different key. And now we can start adding things like reverb to give it that detail. Because we're playing slower, we can play with the longer reverb. Okay, so my ear likes to transpose down 1 and 3. So 1, 2, 3. Okay, now we can be fancy and add more sound effects to this. So let's go to our mixer, this icon here, And if your sound is not in the mixer, go to your channel rack here, hit Control L to send the sound to the mixer. We could add different effects. You know, there's many effects we could add. Let's add a plugin called Transporter. This is really good for modern glitchy type sounds. We're just going to turn these knobs up and turn it on tempo mode. I like tempo mode. It might be a little too movement for this melody, but basically what it's doing is adding a granular smear to the sound. And then we could turn it down, loop A and loop B. So this is adding a small texture. Now another plugin that I like is called Hyperchorus. This is for like that Travis Scott effect. Now keep in mind, this does take away some of the transients. So if you're looking for a melody that grabs the ear, you got to be careful with the hyperchorus because it smooths things out to the ear. And at this point, we could add filler notes in the chords. Dun, dun. Okay, so now we're just adding little bounce notes in between the melody. And again, think of it like a rhythm more than a melody. Now, if you want to get really, really fancy in FL Studio, this only works with image line plugins, meaning plugins that FL Studio they create, I should say. This does not work for third-party plugins like Serum and all that type of stuff. It won't work currently. So what we could do is double-click a note and make it a slide note. This will slide all of the active MIDI notes to this note, or we could do what's called a portamento note, which will slide all the notes to it, but also play the other notes. So let's just do this on random notes here just to see what effect we get. A little hard to hear, so I'm going to turn it into a slide note so that all the notes slide. So it goes like that. So now we've kind of created a tape stop effect in a way. Now you could do this per MIDI channel. So if I double click here and change the MIDI channel, only the pink notes will slide to the pink notes. Now they have to match in MIDI channels. MIDI channels are not just colors, they trigger different things. And because the sound doesn't really have a tail to it, you can't really hear that effect. So let's swap this piano out for something like, a synth. And now we're going to show you guys more of the kind of post melody making stuff. Let's switch this to kind of keyboard in here. Let's do, this one's a good preset here. So now this note is sliding all the way up to the fifth here over that amount of time. See how this slides the entire composition down? We don't want that to happen. So let's select individual notes and change the MIDI channel so that it only affects, and I learned this from Synthit. Shout out to Synthit. So we're going to change the channels here. So now only the pink notes are affected by the pitch bends in this case. So it adds a little bit of a glittery texture. It's hard to hear without soloing it. Let's take out the top line just so you guys can. So that's the effect we're adding. So it goes boom, and then it slides down. So the top line, let's separate this so that we can compose with it separately. So let's paste this into a different pattern here. And now when we go to compose the melody, then we have, we could take out that top line. And you guys will get the project files for free. So see how we're using all these components for the same instrument? I want to teach you guys my next system here. It's a 7-note system. Let's pull up a plugin like Sakura, for example. Let's see here, Sakura. Now this 7-note system is an ironclad system. It's really good for hip hop. Let's pull up some stuffs here. Let's see what these even sound like. So firstly, we need a good sound. All right, so I found a decent sound, not the greatest sound, but I found a decent sound here. And what we were going to do is hit Control L, send it to the mixer. So this 7-note system is really easy. Let's right click, open the piano roll. Firstly, let's pick a root note. In this case, we're going to start at E. It doesn't really matter where your root note exists. We're just going to hit start at E. What we're going to do here is start at the root note E, count up 5 notes. This is called your perfect fourth. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Start back at the root note one more time. Hit Shift, duplicate this note. Count up 7 notes this time. This is called your perfect fifth. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then we're going to take these notes and add a note above the fifth. This is called a sharp fifth or augmented fifth. And then we're going to do what's called a flat fifth by adding the note below it and above it. And then we're going to take the tonic note and use the note above it and below it. The same thing we were doing with the fifth. Think of these as tonal twins in a way. They act very similar. Okay, so let's take this entire structure, drag it so that it's one big thing, and you guys will get the project files for free. Just go to busyworksbeats.com/music theory to get these project files for free. In this case, we're going to turn it to the right and just turn the volume down. Let's start here at E, hit Alt to restore the velocity, and let's go to pattern mode here. Now, basically, you could just go up and down this scale however you'd like, and it will make sense. So no matter if, basically, we're going out of key, but it sounds okay when you resolve the intervals here. So let's go from E to B, which is the fifth. And then our ear wants to go up a half step, and then it usually wants to come back down a half step. Okay, so we're just going to pull this. Remember that rule of 3. So now we can switch up this top part so it's not repetitive. And this is why this scale is important, because now I can pull this down to the fourth and do different things. And we're going out of key, and it still sounds cohesive. Okay, so we went out of key. Let's see how many times we went out of key here and here. Technically, E minor this is out of key. Okay, so we're going out of key multiple times. Oops, that was a mistake. We're going out of key multiple times. So this would be our top line in this case. Now that would be the highest notes usually. So again, it depends on the sound. And we could do the same exact thing. We could reinforce it with the root note. And then do what's called syncopated notes. Notes that don't start right on the downbeat. And then we can also use those rules for this contrast layer. Let's take this entire thing, clone it down. So now we're adding the density to the melody. Let's turn this up a little bit, it's a little quiet. See how it feels like a performance now? So I'm just adjusting some of these parameters here. Whoa. Let's see what their chorus sounds like. That was already on. I'm just going to turn up the chorus a little bit. The sound is a little bright for me, but again, we're using a preset. We could do the same thing. We could send this to the mixer, hit Control L. Let's open up the transporter plugin here just to add more glittery stuff to it. These are stock plugins, so I'm trying to stay away from third-party plugins. Let's go to tempo mode. Now we're going to get a little crazy with the sound design. Let's add gross beat. Let's go to the presets, go to momentary. Let's go to half speed. I like to blend it in with the time level here. Now because because the melody is so low, we're going to pull it up 1 octave. Let's hit Control up. So now when it goes through gross beat and slows down, it will sound normal. And we can blend it in with the time knob, or we could just turn it on completely. There's a lot of movement, so now we have to measure the rhythm of this melody and if it's overlapping, because now we're creating an additional contrast layer. So instead of doing it that way, what we're going to do is send this to send it to another track. We're going to open up Fruity Reverb 2. Turn your dry level down, right click, reset the wet level here. We're going to turn up the decay curvature, turn up the low cut just to cut out the lows, turn up the mod, which is like a chorus effect. Now we're going to run the reverb through the gross beat. So this is going to be a little bit of a different approach. And again, now we can go back and swap out the sound if that sound isn't exactly what we want. Let's see what Flex has under some guitars, maybe. Let's try some guitars. Actually, I like one of these bass sounds. It's good for melodies. Let's pull it up an octave. So one of these notes doesn't trigger because it's not sampled in the actual instrument. So in this case, we're going to have to move the C down an octave. Now let's say the frequencies are too low. Like in this case, we can add another plugin here called, I believe it's called Pitch Shifter. Now I only recommend this for stuff like this. I would not use this for like voice and stuff, but we're going to pitch this up an octave. And now we can go back to the sound and just turn down the reverb. It might even be better to put Transporter on the reverb channel. Let's try that. So now I'm granulizing the sound and then it's running through the reverb. Now we have this like weird textural reverb that we can't get just by slapping a reverb on. That's just a technique. Okay, so let's humanize this and let's give it a little bit of a strum. Let's hit Alt S. Now the strum only works for notes that are overlapping in terms of time. So like for example, these first notes were overlapping. These other notes do not get strummed because there's no note to strum into it. Okay, now let's add a little, let's go to the tools, let's go to humanize. And again, we need to go back to our remove overlap scripts. Again, you have to download that from the image forum, the image line forums. Let's turn our effects back on. right, so you can take your time with adding more effects. Let's try the hyper chorus. Again, it's that Travis Scott type of effect. Let's see what we have so far. All right, so now you guys have more tools to make better melodies right inside of FL Studio. Subscribe if you're new. If you want these project files for free, go to busyworksbeats.com/FL Studio. I'm going to add it to the downloads folder. Peace out, guys.